This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks, show number 168, recorded on May 22nd, 2014. Here at Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all your favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here in Bellevue, Nebraska, and we post the show with some pretty decent, I've been saying world-class show notes. They've been kind of weak. This week, they're going to be really good because Ryan did most of them out at the AverageGuy.tv. If you have questions, comments, or contributions, you can contact the show via email. Just send it to me, Jim, at the AverageGuy.tv. Find me on Twitter at jcollison, or now you can call in those questions. And actually, at the very end of the show, we did have to have somebody call in a response to last week's fitness show. So we'll play that at the end of this one. But you can call those in, 402-478-8450. And, of course, we'll play those questions right here. And if it's a question related to what we're going to talk about, we'll play it earlier. But tonight it's at the end of the show, so hang around for that. And now Home Gadget Geeks is a part of the Geeks Network. You can find the links to this show and many other great podcasts out at the Geeks Network.com. Join us in chat, watch, or listen to the show, and find all the navigation in the upper right-hand corner out at the AverageGuy.tv. All right, well, I've got a new friend to the show tonight, and a guy that I've been hanging out with over the last couple months. I met him kind of through Dave Jackson in the School of Podcasting and Ask the Podcast Coach, and we kind of hang out on Saturday mornings together as Ryan's out in chat, and I get to do the show with Dave Jackson. Ryan Parker from the Food Craftsmen. Ryan, thanks for coming on.
Jim, thank you so much for having me. I am super excited to be here as what you called me earlier, the fresh face of the average.
A fresh, yes, that's right, a fresh face to our network. We have I have been changing the format of the show a little bit over the last couple months and doing more interviews, but it was some guys that we'd had in the past, and you and I were talking about some stuff, and I said, you know what, we need to incorporate a little bit of food tech into what we do. We've never done a food tech episode, and I didn't want to do it just for the sake of it being cool, but there is tech, there are new gadgets for the kitchen that are out, things that you can add to your kitchen routine. Now that we're home gadget geeks, those gadgets I want to incorporate in, and so this was a perfect opportunity. I said to Ryan, hey, are there any cool things out there we can talk about? And you said, yeah, there are a few, so we'll get to those.
Tons of great stuff to talk about.
Yeah, good. We'll get to those here in just a second. Ryan, since you're new to the network and we don't know who you are, why don't you take a second, tell us a little bit about your background. I want to know a little bit about Food Craftsmen, those kinds of things.
Sure, that sounds great. So, again, I'm Ryan Parker, and I am a chef by trade, and over the last couple of years, a podcaster by trade. And you can find that podcast at foodcraftsmen.com, men.com. And gosh, I've spent the last 20 years working with food and some of these gadgets, actually, now that they're home gadgets. I've started working with them at home. But so I spent a lot of time in the kitchen, definitely, behind the hot line, sweating it out in the 120-degree kitchens for many years. And then I turned my focus into education. And so I've run a couple culinary schools, and now I teach healthy cooking for a company out here in San Francisco.
In the Bay Area, how you liking the Bay Area?
Relatively new to the Bay Area. We've been out here for 2 years. I'm loving the weather. I think it's absolutely great.
It's pretty nice.
You don't get any of the snow. You can always drive to it if you want to ski in the winter or snowboard. I have yet to tackle either one of those. I'm a little afraid. I see that you've got skis.
I do. Yeah, we ski in Colorado, although they're pretty much just, at this point, those are pretty much just
decorative.
Decorative, yeah. They're kind of old.
Yeah, so I'm loving the weather. I like being out this way. I'm a Midwestern boy by heart. Grew up in Michigan.
Michigan, yeah.
Yeah. So, I think we'll go back there someday. But, what I do over at the Food Craftsmen is I basically help people leverage their brand through online marketing, and also the podcast actually is mainly focused on people with artisanal products. So basically they want to take control of the product from beginning to end, and so they're usually smaller companies, and I do interviews with them and discuss how they got started and what their inspirations were. And, you know, some of the great questions like, what do you wish you knew before you got yourself into starting this business? And it's been really great. It's opened a lot of opportunity to meet wonderful people. I think podcasting in general has done that, like meeting you and Dave Jackson, and Ray Ortega actually just invited me to do a shoot in
Very
San
cool.
Francisco.
Yeah, he's
So
not far, right?
yeah, he's a little south of me. So we haven't gotten together yet, which we're hoping to do shortly.
Yeah, Ray's a good guy. I'd like to hang out with him. He's a really good photographer too. So
He's an
that's
excellent photographer, and in fact, I might do the shoot just to maybe learn a little bit more, because I I'm I'm a gadget guy in the sense that I feel that I need to have gadgets, and yet I don't master those gadgets. So I have a wonderful HD Sony camcorder. I've got, a wonderful um, Canon DSLR, and yet I have yet to master using them. So I might try and pick up some tips from him.
yeah,
Do a
and he's
little
just
bit
an
of
all
learning.
around. He's an all around great guy. So if you get a chance,
Fantastic guy. I met him at New
yeah.
Media Expo, and it was his birthday weekend, so we had a wonderful time just getting to know him there and watching him celebrate his birthday.
Yeah, yeah, sounds good. So just the one podcast that you do then, or what's your ecosystem, and how often do you podcast?
Well, right now, the Food Craftsman has been on hiatus for a couple of weeks now, but because I treat it like seasons, like television seasons. So I'm getting ready to start producing season 3. So basically, I'm gathering my interviews and people to interview, and getting all of those ideas kind of worked out. And so that's the latest podcast that I do. I've got one that I have just kind of let sit there for a while. It's called Killer Food, and you can find that in iTunes as well. I think if you search Ryan Parker, you can find it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Killer food is that stuff that's not good for you?
basically, yeah. And the funny thing is it originally started off as an extension of a job I was doing previously, which is similar to the one I had right now, which was talking about healthy cooking techniques and how to harness that. And it just got to the point where I was like, I want to talk about food, and I want to talk about food in general. So it turned out to be more of just, how to harness the power of the kitchen and be there and really understand how to create amazing killer food. But my home base right now is foodcraftsman.com.
Very cool, and it's good. We last week I did a fitness. We kind of have we're kind of theming these out a little bit, and whatever X tech, fitness tech, food tech. And so last week we talked about fitness, and actually some of the guys were talking about diet and food and those kinds of things. I'll have to have you back on some point. We won't talk gadgets. Maybe I can pick your brain about some average guy tips for cooking.
Sure.
That from a diet perspective, because I really believe most of the weight problems that we have, they're about 95% food problems and about 5% exercise problems.
Oh,
And
I
yet,
can I can attest to that. I at one point in time had lost almost 80 pounds without changing my exercise routine at all, which was nothing at the time. And it's all about the food that you eat. So when you have me back, I will tell you the one tip to cut out 200 calories every mealtime.
Sweet.
That you don't know that you're actually eating.
All right. Well, we'll hold that as a secret. We'll keep it. We'll tease it out, and we'll bring you back here and have you back on. We talk about the food, but let's talk about the cooking pieces. And you kind of interest me. I challenged you with some gadgets, and you really threw this very first one that's in there that really helps you cook. It's like a slow cooker, but it's different than that. And so talk a little bit about this gadget that really helps you get all the flavor and doesn't help you and helps you not to overcook the food.
Well, the first gadget is actually an immersion circulator, and it coincides with using a technique called sous vide, which means under pressure. So basically, an immersion circulator, and the one that I've listed in our show notes is from Sansair, and I actually just purchased this not too long ago. And so basically what this does is have you ever seen a coffee warmer where you stick the heating element into your coffee cup and it keeps it warm or reheats it.
Sure.
So this is a bigger, more precise version of that. So you can use a pot like that's in the picture there. Basically, what you're doing is you're heating liquid, and in most cases it's water. You're heating it to a precise temperature, and then you're actually cooking food in bags. So what I do for home use is I'll just take a zip top bag and I'll put food in it. A really great example that I love is the steak, is kind of like the steak that you're showing there. So I know that I like my steak at rare, and so that's around, for me, 125 degrees. So you stick the Sansair immersion circulator in a pot of water, and this particular one actually can work with up to 6 gallons of liquid. So you've got quite a bit of room depending on the shape of the tub that you put this in. You can use a pot. I have a nice plastic tub that holds 6 gallons, and it's got a larger surface area, so I can float a couple different bags in there. So what I'll do is I'll take a steak, and for us, we like a New York steak, New York strip. You put it, you season it, you put it in a plastic bag, you extract as much air as you can, and then I even sometimes take a straw and try and suck out extra air and seal it up. And then you just float that in there. And so for a steak like that, you can actually cook that steak 4 hours, 6 hours at 125 degrees, and it'll be the same temperature all the way through. And then what I like to do is actually pull that out and let it rest for about 10 or 15 minutes, and then crank up a cast iron pan and sear the outside. So if you notice in the picture that we have for all of us watching the video, on the right-hand side, you've got that. It's super well done, about 1/4 of an inch the way through on both sides. When you sous vide it basically keeps that same temperature. And by only searing the outside, you've got a beautiful crust. It's got a great flavor to it. You can do some additional seasoning to it just before you sear it off, and it works absolutely amazing. And it's not just for meats. I do the same thing for vegetables, corn on the cob, asparagus. Put them in a plastic bag. I put the marinade or any sort of seasonings right in that bag and just let it cook. One of the great things about it is you can reduce, oil if you want. You can cook it in its own juices, or you can cook it in a vegetable broth or stock. And so it really locks in those flavors and really forces those flavors into the meats and vegetables that you put in there.
Flip that back. So would you have to sear it or is that just a flavor thing, because the when you do sear it changes the chemical compound in the food and changes it a little bit? Is it a flavor thing only, or do you need to sear it?
It's a flavor enhancer. It basically, what's happening there is it's called the Maillard reaction. It's the caramelization or the browning of the proteins and natural sugars that are found in meat. It's definitely a flavor issue and a texture issue. You want to have a little bit of that on the outside. If you didn't want it, you'd have this perfectly cooked steak with no sear on the outside, which is fine for some things. But the other thing is it's a nice visual thing as well. You bring a steak to a table, you want it to have that nice charred look to it.
Yeah, that looks good.
One gadget that actually goes along with it that I didn't put on there, it's not out yet, but it's also one of those ones that is going through Kickstarter right now. It's called a Searsall, and you take a basic butane torch, and it's a clamp that goes over the top of it, and it disseminates the heat around a ceramic dome, and you place that over your meat or your vegetables, or you can make s'mores with it if you want. But it disperses the heat evenly, so you can char it without even heating up another pan if you wanted to. It's beautiful. I can't wait for that to actually come out.
Yeah, in your chef world, right? When you're cooking for the masses, could you do the same procedure for like a whole bunch of meat and just have it ready at different temperatures, and then just throw it on?
Yeah, that's a really great That's a really great question. So for some cuts of meat, like say short ribs, um, normally the cooking method is braising. So you could actually prepare your braise and do all of that in the bag, or like in some of the places that I've worked, I've braised short ribs in a pan, put a little bit of the, reduce the cooking liquid from the braise, put the short ribs in a vacuum seal bag along with that cooking liquid, store it and cool it quickly. So, obviously we're not worried about bacteria. But then come service time, you can actually use an immersion circulator like this to heat products up and keep them at temperature for a couple hours at a time, pull them, and then just finish them quickly. And so that's another great way to use this particular product.
Because it's cooking it. Mark and chat said I would have a hard time believing that I would prefer that over using my grill. It's cooking the meat all the way through like you're going to get on the grill. So you're still getting that, and then when so it's just kind of the reverse. You're cooking it all the way through first, and then browning the outside, as opposed to browning the outside and then having to make sure you don't cook it too fast to get the inside done the way you want it. Can you do well done and all? I mean, there's temperature settings that I assume then that
Right.
you would crank that up to?
So the Sans Air, and there's another one from Anova Culinary. Both of them are immersion circulators. So he's absolutely correct. There's really no beating the taste of a grill. But here's the challenge that I would say for that. I would cook the steaks that you're going to put on the grill to the temperature that you want in the immersion circulator. And especially if you're going to have a party, right? If you're going to have 5 or 6 people over or 10 people over and you want steaks for everyone. So cook them off in the immersion circulator you could even do this a day ahead of time, right? Pop them back in the fridge, let them chill, and then when you're ready to eat, you get your grill nice and hot, and you've done some grilled veggies, and so you're still interacting with people, you're still around the grill, you're still having a great time, and then find the hottest portion of the grill. And I know for you have a propane grill, so turn your grill up hot, get the grates just searing, smoking hot, and mark your steaks, and you're going to have that same flavor. That's how quickly it takes on the flavor of the charcoal in the grill.
Yeah, because you're getting that flavor from the searing, not from the cooking, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So even on the grill, if you're going to have that hot grate, all you have to do is make sure it's super nice and hot, and it takes maybe a minute on each side to get you that nice char from the grill, and all that smoke flavor is already infused. That's how quickly it happens on the grill. So, it's a great way to definitely have a large portion or many portions of meat going through. One of my favorite applications actually for this is cooking eggs. I don't know about you. Are you a poached egg fan?
I'm a hard-boiled egg guy.
Well, you could hard boil them too if you wanted to, but I'm a huge eggs Benedict fan and poached egg fan. So with this, it's so temperature sensitive. These two particular models are within a tenth of a degree. The professional models are precise within 1/100th of a degree, which I don't think we really need at home. But heck, the price difference between the professional model and home models is about $300, depending on where you're getting the professional model. But so I can set in beautiful farm fresh eggs that I've just got, went out into the market and picked up, or even the supermarket. The best thing is fresher eggs hold up better no matter what kind of cooking method you're using. But I can pop them in there at 63 degrees and let them sit for 2 hours if I wanted to. Take them out and crack the egg open, and I've got this beautiful egg shape, and it's got a nice soft white that's fully cooked, and then the yolk just kind of oozes out. And so it's a perfectly cooked egg every time.
So the magic really in this is getting that the exact cooking temperature and holding it, right? So that because otherwise we're guessing, right? When you go to 375 on the oven, there's no guarantee it's going to stay there, or right,
Sure, especially
on the
with
burners.
especially with electric ovens or electric burners, they cycle on and off. So the temperature fluctuation is so radical that if it's in its heating cycle, it could actually get up if you have the temperature set at 350, it could get up to 400 before it shuts itself back down, to kind of keep the average temperature of a 350 degrees. So the great thing about some of these too is if you're concerned about knowing the particular temperatures that you want, Anova's culinary immersion circulator actually speaks to your iPhone and smartphones. So you can actually control the immersion circulator directly from your phone. So it has an app that comes with it, and I believe it connects Bluetooth. And so you can control the cooking time, you can control the temperature. So if you need it to change, it's really great. If you're a lobster fan, this is exactly how you want how you want to cook lobster, because you can set your temperature to 145 degrees, put a couple lobster tails in a plastic bag, a couple pats of butter, salt and pepper, and you've got yourself butter poached lobster. No mess whatsoever.
Yeah, because you're just throwing away the bags. I think you had said to me, double Ziploc is probably what's best, right, on
Yeah,
those bags.
yeah,
And you can put the seasoning and whatever right in the bag, and then just let it kind of. It's just weird because we think it's boiling. It's not boiling water, right? This is
right.
heated up to 170 degrees, which is half of the boiling temperature or so,
Sure.
right?
Yeah. So boiling's at 212, and so I believe these home models go up to about 200.
Okay.
So they have a temperature range of geez, 85 degrees to 200, I think are the ranges.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
they're very versatile. And, if you want to hold hot food hot for a while, crank it up to 145 degrees and you can keep hot food hot for a while,
Does the fat change? When we cook food grill wise or on a cast iron, it changes the complexity of the fat. You're not boiling it, but you're warming it here. Does that change the fat at all inside
Sure.
like meat?
It does. So what's happening, the biggest thing about having, putting especially meat or steaks in for a longer period of time, especially the tougher cuts, you want to get it up to a temperature that, like short ribs, you could cook at 165 for 18 hours, because what that's doing is it's breaking down the connective tissue in the meat. And so that's kind of how you get that fork tenderness to it. Now that's completely different than putting a nice steak in there. But when you put the steak in, if it's above 110 degrees, because you're taking me all the way back to culinary school now.
I'm
But
testing you.
exactly. But beef fat melts around 107, 110 degrees. Pork fat is right around body temperature. So here, a really good example is last weekend we actually have a yakitori grill, which is this tiny Japanese grill, which is great for us. There's two of us. We live in an apartment. So we take that out and we set it out on the table, and we don't have to, fuss with the big community
Yeah, it's like a
grill.
tabletop grill.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
beautiful. And we put natural hardwood charcoal in. But we're big fans of chicken wings. We love chicken wings all different ways. So I actually put the chicken wings in with a basic brine mixture, which is salt and some other seasonings, a little bit of acid, a little bit of sweetness, and just a touch of water, and sealed that up and put that in the immersion circulator for a couple hours. And once those were out, I actually drained away all of the liquid that was in there, as I didn't have any other use for it at the time. But along with that was actually a lot of the kind of the subcutaneous fat that's in the chicken wings. And so when you grill those up, you actually get that really nice, crispy, crunchy, chicken skin. And so we had a nice little brine in there, so it infused a lot of the flavor into the meat. And then when you put it on the grill, all you have to do is really just get the nice char on it. So our chicken wings are fully cooked. They take 2 minutes on the grill. There's a lot less mess. There's a lot less flare up too, because you're not having that fat drip into the grill, creating a lot of flame.
Yeah. And it's just a quick. You throw them on, brown them up, get them crispy the way you want them, pull them right off because they're
Mm-hmm.
cooked, right? At that point,
Yeah.
it's really it's really either to taste or to look, right? The way they look at that point when they're done, for the most part.
Yeah, it's the same idea as
Yeah.
searing a steak. Like I could have taken them out of the bag and eaten them, but what would have been fun? You know, there would
Yeah,
have been
yeah, well,
fun about that.
yeah. There's texture, right? Which
Yeah,
was equally important, that we expect a certain kind of texture
yeah.
in the food.
Mouthfeel,
And
texture, all
hmm
that stuff is really important. You eat with your eyes, you know, first. So if I'm telling you I'm going to have chicken wings, either they're going to have a really beautiful glazed barbecue sauce on them or a hot sauce on them, or they're going to be just nicely charred. You know, they're really it's a really great little experience too to have this, and it's actually a lot of freedom in the kitchen too, because I can set this immersion circulator up on the countertop, on the kitchen table, out on the patio, as long as I have an electrical source for it. It works really really well.
yeah, and you can kind of set it early, get things, because it seemed like everything has about a minimum of an hour to that it needs to go. But and I was looking on their site, they kind of have some recommendations
Hmm.
for different kinds of fish, chicken, steak, the various how long you should do it for. You and I talked when we were in pre-show about this, that you don't want to cook it too long because there's some bacteria concerns that
Sure.
you
That
don't want.
depends on the temperature. So if I have it above 145 degrees, I'm not as concerned about that. So with a steak, you know, if I've just brought it home from the meat counter and put it directly into the machine, into the sous vide, the immersion circulator, I'm not too concerned about that. So I could let it cook up to 2 or 3 hours. So the window on the bacteria is the growth window is somewhere around the 4 hour mark. The bacteria starts to explode. You know, really, it's the right conditions for bacteria. So for like a steak, if you're going to be if anything you're going to cook under 145 degrees Fahrenheit, I would look at around an hour. Anything above that, like you would normally stew, braise, cook for a long time, you're going to have that up to 155, 160 degrees anyway. So just go right ahead and you can cook that for longer. I did a chuck roast in it for 12 hours 2 weeks ago. And although I wasn't all that happy with the chuck roast when I cubed it up and put it in, a sauce with some pasta, what I was really happy with was when I took that and sliced it really thin and just put it on a sandwich. It was absolutely gorgeous.
Mm. Man, I'm hungry. I need to eat dinner again. Let's hold on
Yeah,
to the
me too.
podcast. No,
We're
it's
gonna take a
fun.
dinner break. We will be right back.
That's right. Go and grab a steak. No, that sounds good. Well, we could that we got some more things to cover, but I think that's a very interesting, especially for some of those meats that are tricky to get right. I think where the internal temperatures to get right, this
Yeah.
kind of eliminates some of that. You think?
Oh, it minimizes it 99% of the time. If your immersion circulator's working properly and you've got the right amount of liquid, I learned a valuable experience. I put it in a tub that was too large, and so the immersion circulator was having a hard time keeping a temperature hot enough. So you have to have the right size tub to put it in, and but as long as you do that and you know how you like your steaks, it works really really well. The other stuff like chicken or poultry, you're definitely going to be cooking it above 145 degrees anyway because you normally want those all cooked all the way through. But pork loin at 140 degrees, cooked for about an hour and then seared on the outside is absolutely magical. We it's got just the slightest pink hue to it, and it is so tender and so juicy. It is the probably some of the most amazing pork I've ever had. So,
Mm. I don't know. You're challenging some of my grilling skills. I think I'm a pretty good
yeah,
griller, without this. And in fact,
sure.
my kids love my chicken and even the steak. When I bring that in, like, Dad, you make the best ever. But this is interesting. And then a couple of questions from chat. We talked about a maximum temperature, 200
Right around
is
there. Yeah.
right around 200 with boiling being at 212. Of course, you don't want to boil this stuff. Things that changes. There's probably other things that happen at the boiling
You
point,
might
right?
melt the bag at that point in time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then any advantages into any other kinds of liquid to instead of water? Would there be any advantages to anything else?
Sure. The only reason that I've used only water so far is because it's easier for me to clean the machine. I don't have to worry about any sort of gosh, food particles going into the machine, etc. But if you wanted to, you could, and I've seen some of the higher end chefs do this, the Thomas Kellers and stuff like that at the higher end restaurants. They've actually filled with the professional models a 10-gallon tub with butter, and they butter poach lobsters directly into it. So there's an advantage to that. I take advantage of it by putting any sort of liquid that I want into the bag itself, just for ease of cleanup, really. And if you want to get really, if you want to be real big boss with this stuff, what you want to do is couple this particular immersion circulator with what's known as a vacuum sealing machine. And there's a couple options out there. Food Saver is probably the oldest, most known brand, but I've never had luck sealing liquids with that particular brand and that particular model. So I'm looking into getting a vacuum sealing system from Polyscience, who is the first one that really created the immersion circulators for the professional. And they're now starting to release home versions as well, which is great.
And the advantage is to having a home sealer instead of just a Ziploc bag. Is what exactly I'm spending. The one I posted the link in chat. I imagine they're $200 or so in price. What's the advantage to having your own sealer?
A good model is $189 to almost $400. They have a chamber sealer, which actually put the entire thing inside this chamber and it seals it. That's like $600. That's a little overkill and a little too much for my wallet. Well, one, you get a really great seal on the bag. So if you do have if you want to marinate something that has a lot of liquid in it, you're ensuring that it's not going to leak into the tub. But the other thing that it can do, if you have a model that has a strong enough vacuum, is some of your softer fruits and vegetables, you can actually apply a lot of pressure into those, and it will actually compress the proteins and the cell walls of the vegetables and the fruit, and it changes the texture. I think the real advantage is for all of us who really like really great meat and we want to throw a marinade on it for a while. You can put these into what's called marinade mode, and it will compress that meat, and it forces all of the flavorings that are in the marinade inside the meat. And so you can do that, and it takes 2 minutes versus an hour, and you've got a completely marinated steak or piece of fish or chicken, for that matter.
2 minutes? So that's it?
It takes about 2 minutes, and then you could either pull that out and put those directly on the grill, or you could cook it in the immersion circulator.
With the marinade?
With the marinade, yeah.
Oh, so throw your marinade in, throw your piece of meat in, vacuum seal it, wait 5 minutes, throw it in the immersion cooker, let it go for an hour, cut it open, pull it out, throw it on the grill for 2 minutes, you're done.
Yep. You want to sear it on the grill. So let's walk through a steak real quick though. Yeah. Let's say you wanted to just be the old-fashioned way and the Jim Collison way and take everything out to
wait a minute now.
the meat out to the grill, right?
That's the way men do it.
But let's say we got home late. Let's say you got home late from work and you've got a couple of friends coming over, and you know that you want to marinate 4 steaks. So you could put the steaks in, depending on the size of the bag, you could probably put them all in there. Put your marinade in, and then actually put it on marinade mode, force all of those flavors into the steak, and then take them out to the grill and just grill them like you normally would. And that pressure will push all of that flavor in. It's really an amazing process.
Yeah, it's a huge time saver, I would imagine. I mean, from a couple minutes.
Think about this. Even if you didn't compress it at all and you just put the marinade in and you sealed the bag, you can stick that in the fridge and let it sit for a couple of days, and you don't have to worry about the bag leaking. I come home sometimes and find marinades have leaked out of the bags, even on the zip top bags, the double safety seal zip top bags. Those sometimes they just leak, you know. So
And
you
this,
gotta weigh the options here.
yeah, no, this seals it up, and they start around 200, so not terribly expensive for that, but something you could use over. Do you have to have special bags for that? Then you have to buy special bags.
They do have special bags, and there's some bags that are branded. Like if you went with the Polyscience one, they have their own bags. Food Saver has their own bags, but then there's also some generic ones that work with different models, so you can kind of save some money there. But the one great thing that I hadn't even spoken on yet when it comes to vacuum sealing these things, when you vacuum seal your food, is you can actually buy in bulk. And if you're a Sam's Club shopper, or let's say your local market has a great deal on fish or steaks, you can take those, vacuum seal them, remove all the air and vacuum seal them, and pop those in your freezer. And it's a great way to save money while you're shopping. And it's also a great way to extend the shelf life. So take advantage of the sales. And if you're a smart shopper, you can save as much money as you've spent on bags or more, throughout the course of the year.
Sure.
You want to know something that's really cool?
Yeah.
If you are a camper, you get the big bags and you take a couple extra matches and maybe a shirt or sweater. You pop them in there, you vacuum seal it, and then you've got a watertight bag that, in case of an emergency, your boat tips over, you've got dry clothes, you've got dry matches. I know that's not food tech, but
I know it's good. That's good.
Ryan's practical guide to living.
That's good average guy emergency tech, right?
Exactly.
How do you get that? Could you, Ryan, would you, if you wanted to say, you say you bought a bunch of chicken on sale, and you made up a big batch of marinade, and you throw these in individual bags and marinate, and can you, once say they marinated for 5 minutes, can you throw that whole thing in the freezer and just let it sit, and then pull that out, cut it open, and barbecue it, or whatever? Would that work, or would you advise that I wait maybe until I'm actually
Yeah.
cooking it to marinate it?
Yeah, I mean, you can do it. Um, I would recommend that you wait until you're ready to cook it before you marinate it. Um, and if you're using the pressure on it, I just think that one, seasons change. You can be fickle on what you want on there, and you've got this beautiful chicken that I would just say, put it in there, seal it up nice and tight. With all the air removed, fights freezer burn. It fights that, even worse, that freezer taste that you get. So I would I would on my end probably just go ahead and vacuum seal it and pop it in the freezer and then marinate it when I'm good and ready to eat it.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, we could talk about that the rest, but there's a few other things I want to get to. One of the things that I think a lot of people struggle with, we make a lot of homemade pizza here at the Collison house. My wife loves to make homemade pizza, and she's got different pans that do that. And there's been a whole host of pans that in the last couple of years, this isn't necessarily high tech, and unless you're talking about the materials that go into actually making this. There's a baking steel that is out, and I kind of went, steel, really? I mean, I kind of think
Yeah.
of steel as one of the worst surfaces to use for baking this kind of stuff. But talk a little bit about baking steel.
So baking steel is actually created by Andres Logsdon. And what's amazing about this is it's he has a couple different sizes. The problem was that he was using baking stones in his oven. And I'm like him. I went through probably 4 baking stones in a year. They shatter, they crack, and because they're usually like some sort of tile. And he actually worked, his family's company is a steel company, and he happened to see a nice 18-inch plate of steel out in his steel yard one day, and he said, let me try this. So it comes in 2 sizes. There's a 1/4 inch and a 3/4 inch. I have the 1/4 inch, and I have to say, ever since I'm a big fan of making pizzas at home as well. It comes seasoned to your house, and it comes in you can purchase a storage bag, and they're all unique recycled material storage bag. Mine happens to be an old Jeep tarp, so it says Jeep across the front. But the idea behind this is it actually produces crusts that are very similar to what you would find in an Italian pizzerias, more along that charred burnt, um, crunchy, thin crust pizzas. Works wonders with that. It does great in terms of baking breads in the oven. I put that under the pan if I'm doing breads in a pan. But freeform bread bowls and stuff like that work really well. Kind of gives you that artisan feel to your pizzas and breads.
And I'm showing a picture. So the thickness of those, then they are, what did you say, 3/4 inch thick, or what was the other
They
one?
have two different sizes, one being the 1/4 inch, and the other is 3/4 inch.
Okay.
And then they also there's like a Big Daddy one, which is way out there. Um,
Yeah.
that's a little.
Is it called the
It's a
big?
lot. That's the big one,
Yeah.
and then they have another one called the Modernist Cuisine Special Edition one, and that's I think even bigger.
Yeah, I think that's this one right here I'm showing.
Yeah.
Yeah, good size. But they're showing these. You see, they're steel color, and you kind of think, well, that's interesting. But what happens if I cook it, use it on the grill, put it in the oven? Those change colors on me. Is that okay? Do I have to scrub that off, or?
The patina on it will blacken, and that is quite all right. I kind of liken it to what you and I were talking about pre-show, which are cast iron pans. I would compare the two in terms of how you what it looks like after use. So they come seasoned with some proprietary blend oil on it. And you pop them in the oven and you heat them up a couple times before you use it. Heat them up, let it cool, heat them up, let it cool. Do that a couple times in order to kind of really bond that oil blend into the steel. And then all I've had to do so far, and I've had mine for almost a year now, and I honestly I make pizzas maybe 2 or 3 times a month at home. Um, all I've had to do is let it cool and take a clean dry rag and brush off any, I use semolina flour under my pizzas so they slide nice and easily off the pizza peel. And I just had to brush it off and, maybe work a little bit harder if there's a piece of cheese or something that fell off and maybe got stuck to it. But it works wonders. You crank your heat up, set the temperature. If you've got a really good oven that goes above 500, thank goodness for you. Mine doesn't do that. Mine, I think it goes to 450. So I put it in there. It cuts down the baking time too. Probably a good 3 or 4 minutes, depending on how hot you get your oven. But it blisters that dough and it really makes it nice and crunchy. So I go for very thin crusts. I take an 8-ounce dough and ball of dough and probably stretch it out to a 12 or 14-inch size pizza, and really get that micro thin pizza, and just blast it with heat.
And I could throw that on the grill, I assume too, if I wanted to.
You can throw it on the grill, and it works just as well. And so there is actually a new version coming out that I've seen, and I haven't got quite all the details on it. But one side is the baking steel, and the other side is a griddle. So it's the baking steel side actually has a little bit of texture to it. And so what I've seen from Andres on the other side is just like you would find a like in a diner, that nice flat steel that really shiny. Both of those can go on the grill. You're not going to warp them because of how thick they are. The only thing I would be concerned about is getting them wet, or putting something very, very cold onto it while it was hot. Maybe that might warp it, but I find hard pressed to think that would be the case.
So Ken in chat says set the oven to the clean setting.
Exactly. Yeah, if you've got a clean setting, that's even better. Boy, I wonder. I wonder how hot the clean setting actually gets.
And I think it actually has to be locked for that. You got to close the door and lock that before that clean setting will work. But
I'll tell you what, you take a nice basic pizza dough, and if you guys want in the chat room, I'll share my pizza dough recipe with Jim, and he can append it to the notes later if you'd like.
Yeah, sure.
But pizza dough simple and nice fresh ingredients. I have this hard fast rule in the house that we do 3 or less ingredients on top of the pizza so the pizza bakes well. That's really my that's my thing. So this works really well with it. I love using it, and I've baked cinnamon rolls in pans on top of it, and in the heat conduction that it has. So what's really special about this is it doesn't lose heat like you would if you were just putting it in on the pizza on a rack in the oven. And it's nice and stable as far as the heat goes, but the heat transfer is much faster into like the pizza dough if you're putting it directly on there. And so that's really what makes it work so well.
Okay, now I want some pizza. So we got steak. I'm grilling when we're done. I'm gonna go make some pizza. This sounds really good.
Better tell your wife she's got to get her pizza.
I know she's not even here. So,
Oh.
and she, you know what? She, in our younger years, she loved to cook, and I loved to grill, and we did a lot of that. Over the last couple years, we've done less of that. And as I talk, every time I talk about this, and even in this conversation, I'm like, I say to myself, man, I need to get back more into slowing down. Because it does take, you can't, I throw stuff together in 5 minutes for dinner, right? I mean,
and I do too.
Yeah.
Depending on the night. But there's also weekends where I will have spent upwards of 20 hours over the weekend cooking food, and that could be either for some, special engagement we're doing, with friends, or it could be just me preparing food for the following week, So why do you think you've gone away from
I think life's gotten busy. We're just not enjoying it as much. I mean, there's a lot. I think there's a bunch of factors. It's just we've gotten so busy with everything. It's like, the food's taking last priority. I think it takes some intentional effort and enjoyment. You need to, and it's not something you just do. I mean, food preparation is a exercise and planning, right? Going to the store,
Very
getting fresh ingredients, having a planning around it. We have planned less. That means we make more trips to the store, which means we shop poorer, from that, because I just don't think you shop as well when you're unplanned.
Let me ask you a question. I'm going to make an assumption here, Jim. I'm going to assume that you are in love with your wife. Now's the time you say yes.
Yes.
I'm going to assume that you are in love with. Do you know how sexy it is?
I know. Like,
women think, do you know how many? I don't want to sound like I've got a lot of. Do you know how many women you can woo with cooking? You know how romantic it is for a man to cook for his wife? Take the time, at least once a month. Do something a little different. Skip going out to dinner. Stop going to Chipotle for a couple days, and you've got enough money to make a beautiful, wonderful dinner, right there in your house.
Yeah. Well, and I'll be honest, I wanted to get better at doing a whole meal on the grill. And vegetables, and teach myself how to do better vegetable recipes and things like that out on the grill. Just haven't really spent the time learning or understanding the right way to do it, having the right equipment. I even thought about, Ryan, of putting a stir fry attachment onto my grill, propane with a nice seasoned pan that I could bring out, throw on there, and do some stir fry or do some Asian, chicken fried rice or things like that outdoors. I never got that done. It was like it was a modification I just never got done.
I think
but you're right.
When you think about upgrading to your next grill, I know you've had your grill since '96.
It's an old grill. I love it.
I know, and you've taken really good care of it, which is awesome, by the way, because like I told you before, my dad didn't take care of the grill growing up, and we'd open it up and there'd be cobwebs inside of it, and so we'd have to clean all that out before we could grill. But next time you look at upgrading your grill, maybe see what kind of attachments may come along with it.
Yeah, I'll have to do that as well. All right, let's bring it back around. And one of the things I think that has gotten real popular of late, or at least a lot of talk around, but I haven't seen anyway yet. Ryan, I got to say, before we start with this is a guy's show. I'm not sure I've got one gal that listens to this program at all. So out in the chat, Rennie was like, "Hey, where are we going with this? Or what a way to a woman's heart? Are we? This is the average guy
That's
dating
for the single guys out there.
Yeah. Average guy Mary advice. Yeah, cook for your wife every once in a while. It's a good idea, and
We got
it
to be
is.
versatile, right?
Yeah, when we replace our appliances coming up, chances are there are more and more smart appliances out there. Now, I haven't really come across any yet. What have you seen come across your radar as far as embedded smartness, let's just call it that, inside refrigerators or grills or those kinds of things?
Yeah. Well, there's one that's in concept right now, and actually, I didn't put this in the show notes, but the one that I saw that was really really cool, and they did it at a consumer showcase show just this year. General Electric is doing the smart range top, and so it looks kind of like the flat cooktop surfaces that you're seeing in homes now, where they don't have the coils or fire. It's that flat surface, but part of it is dedicated to actually multimedia use. So you can pull up recipes, you can have your Facebook feed going through. That hasn't come to market yet, so hopefully we'll see more about that. But a lot of things have been really taken over, because of the advancement in mobile technology. So we're seeing things like refrigerators with Wi-Fi in them. So you can actually, and there was one by Samsung, I think is what I found. It actually has a display built into the door, and so you can take notes right there. You can answer email directly from your door. You can put a shopping list together, and it'll send it to your phone. So when you're out shopping, you've got your shopping list right there.
And I think that's practical. I'm not sure checking your email from your fridge is that
Well,
practical?
I don't think it's practical checking
Yeah.
your email from the stovetop either, but this is
Well,
kind of
but
like how they're trying to
right.
incorporate into the kitchen.
I
You
think
know,
some inventory control would be helpful, right? That's what a fridge has got stuff in it. Kind of knowing what you have in it would be
yeah,
nice.
it would be nice if it had a picture of what was inside, like a live feed of what was actually inside, so I didn't have to open the fridge
That's a great
to see
idea.
what's inside. But I think there's some great practical applications to all of that. I know like there's a lot of like toasters and coffee makers that are creeping in, where when you wake up in the morning and you've got your phone sitting next to the bed, you can tell it to start toasting. You can tell your coffee maker to start making coffee and stuff like that. This one's for you actually really good is from iDevice. It's called the iGrill, and it's relatively inexpensive. It's $80. So if you're entertaining or you've got your grill just outside your kitchen area and you need to, run back inside to finish up a few things, this connects to your phone. It's an outdoor thermometer designed to use in your grill. So you stick the probe inside, maybe a larger piece of meat. Like say you're doing like a big, nice pork loin, or
I do turkey on my grill, so that would be
yeah,
yeah, big
yeah,
turkey.
that's a great application. So you stick it into the thickest part of the breast, and you set the temperature that you want it to reach, and it connects to your phone via Bluetooth. And when the internal temperature of the meat reaches, let's say you wanted to do 155 degrees, if it reaches 155 degrees, it gives you a notification on your phone. It vibrates, it makes noise, all that fun stuff. And that Bluetooth is can connect up to 200 feet, so you can actually you can move about quite a bit without having to stand directly there over the grill.
I assume that's a wire that goes out to someplace safe where the transmitter is.
Correct. So
Yeah.
there's a little box, and it's got like a nice little LED display, and then it has a high temperature uh, wire that goes into the thermostat probe, or the thermometer probe, and that's all high temperature safe. So they reach upwards of 500 or 600 degrees that they can handle. Um, but it's a really great way. They used to have one that actually just worked, and you can actually still use the iGrill thermometer for your oven, and that's where it started. And then they kind of took it to some outdoor applications as well.
Let me show you where I think that would fit right in. So I've got from my blog there, I've got some. Let me see if that's showing up on the screen. Yeah, there we go.
Oh, that would be
So
perfect.
yeah, so we cook two at a time. Typically on Thanksgiving, we're going somewhere else, and so I've got those wrapped up. I make this tinfoil envelope, and then put them on the grill for a couple hours. Generally, I can get a turkey, pretty good sized turkey, maybe to 12 to 15 pounds, cooked in about 3 hours. That way, 2.5. Sometimes they cook pretty fast, faster than I thought they would.
Mm-hmm.
We actually layer bacon. It's hard to see here, but we kind of layer bacon over the top, and that really keeps the turkey moist. It's not healthy by any means. Let's just say this isn't necessarily healthy cooking by Jim, but
Sure.
it is a delicious turkey. My kids would never eat turkey before, and now that they've got this, or I've been cooking it this way, you can see here. I'll kick back over, and this is what it looks like when we're done. But that's also found Heinz 57 is a nice flavor for turkey as well. If you haven't tried that, a Heinz 57 sauce, which some people like and some people don't like. They see that as a very cheap sauce, but it works great on turkey.
I haven't seen that in years, and I've actually kind of forgotten about it. So, I used to love the flavor of Heinz 57.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's kind of my secret recipe for turkey. That's people have been like, what do you do with this? And I'm like, it's turkey, Italian salad dressing, and Heinz 57, plus some other magic things that go in there to keep my recipe proprietary.
Yeah. So, just do you take that and you put it on just before you get it to the grill?
Yep. Yeah.
That's a nice.
So,
way to do it.
I prep it all in the morning, and then layer the turkey and then close that thing up and just throw it on the grill for a couple hours and let it go. And then I use a meat thermometer. I just go out and check it a couple times and get it up to the 170 or whatever that's supposed to. I always have to read what is this supposed to be at? And typically it gets even a little bit warmer. And the longer I leave it on there, I've had even good luck where that turkey pulls away, the breast meat pulls away from the bone.
Mm-hmm.
And it stays, because we have the bacon in there, stays super moist.
I was just gonna ask, like, if it was moist or not.
It's incredibly moist. Yeah, no,
That's
my
great.
kids don't eat any crap. I mean, they're like, if it's not good, I'm not eating it, Dad. And every year they look forward to Thanksgiving because they're like, Dad's turkey. But that would be a nice addition to it, to put that probe in there, and then I could just kind of check it from my phone. Is it iPhone only, or can I get an Android?
They have iPhone and Android apps, I believe, both. Yeah. So we'll get you just brining your turkey a day or two ahead of time.
Yeah, I've never done that. A brine is just a saline solution, or is that right?
In its base form, yeah.
Okay.
It's very, very simple. But if you've
drop do I need to unfreeze the turkey before I put it in the solution, or can I put it in there frozen and let it sit there and thaw out and brine in the same solution?
I've never done it frozen. I don't see why not. It would probably help. It'd be helpful keeping the temperature down. What I was going to suggest was you get your big cooler there, and one of those big plastic coolers.
Mm-hmm.
Put your turkeys in there. Put the ice over the top of them. Put your brine over the top of that, and then just keep adding ice as you needed to go along, depending on how long you wanted to brine it. But I usually do 24 hours to 48 hours ahead of time.
Okay. I'll have to try that. I've heard of guys that do that, and I just haven't. That's just a step I haven't done. I take it right out of the package that morning. We thaw it out for a couple days, and then right out of the package, right into these envelopes. And I get the extra wide Saran Wrap, or not Saran Wrap, sorry, tin foil. Yeah. And speaking of foil versus plastic, somebody had asked earlier, are there any issues with cooking with plastic, and from a toxin, or from if you're cooking this meat? Earlier we were talking about cooking meat in plastic.
Sure.
Any issues with that?
Depends on who you ask. I used to work for a place that would shun you for looking at the plastic wrap. So, I honestly believe right now, I don't think the science is all that concrete yet. But you also have to look at it too. If you're doing this every day for every meal, you might have some issue there. But I can't give you a solid answer on that in terms of yes or no. I just don't know enough about it.
Okay. Good enough. I think you look into it. Yeah. If you're not comfortable with it, don't do it. That's kind of
I think
whatever helps you sleep.
Kind of one of those personal choice things. I don't. People have a big problem with plastic bottles and bottled water and stuff like that. And I think a lot of these have a lot of the chemicals that they had once identified as as an issue removed. So you kind of got to take it for what it's worth and make your own personal choice on that.
Yeah, no, I think that's good advice. There's also a conversation going in chat about gas. Of course, they asked me if I use propane or natural gas, and I'm a propane tank guy. You can get a line run out of your house into a grill for natural gas. Do you have any preference, Ryan?
I love hardwood charcoal.
Okay.
If I'm using a gas grill, I've only used propane gas grills growing up. If it wasn't charcoal, I like hardwood charcoal. It burns hotter. It burns longer than the briquettes. I just like the flavor that you get.
Yeah, it is
get
good.
from it.
Yeah, it is
We got
good.
ourselves a nice little charcoal chimney starter, so we don't have to do any of the adding any of the lighter fluid to it. And so it works really well. I love
I
it.
like the taste of lighter fluid. What's wrong with that?
You had me thinking of Hank Hill when you were talking about propane.
Oh, is that
Also,
what you were
propane
snickering?
and propane accessories. That was my poor Hank Hill.
Oh, that's good. That wasn't bad. That wasn't bad. And I love my propane. I
Damn
was
it,
telling you.
Bobby.
I was telling you earlier, I really use an indirect flame for my
Mhm.
grill. I put a whole bunch of briquettes, lava rock, whatever that stuff's made out of. I'm not even sure what it's made out of. But I basically cover the whole bottom so there are no flames. And it takes a little bit longer because you got to heat the rocks up before you cook the
Mhm.
food. But I don't. I like the no flame cooking. It's just kind of what I choose to do, and that
Yeah,
works out real well for me. So. Hey, let's do a little bit of a lightning round. You've got some apps in here that you
sounds
think might
good.
be helpful for these are available on the iTunes if you're a iPhone. I'm sure there's some equivalent on Android, but blow through these real quick.
I want to apologize, first of all, to those who don't use an iOS device. That's what I know, so that's what I researched.
I think it's fine.
Yeah. A really great one, just in terms of learning how to cook and kind of free yourself from recipes, is an app called Ratio. And that's by a guy who's an author. His name is Michael Ruhlman, and he's actually made his career writing about famous chefs and writing about his experiences at culinary school. And he developed this app uh, after his first book, Ratio, or after his book Ratio was released. And this is a really great thing because it actually allows you to kind of go through and learn how to make bread dough, batters, sauces, all from plugging in some numbers and knowing what your ingredients are. And I think it's a wonderful thing. And I'm of the idea of I really try my hardest to get away from teaching people how to cook through recipes and more about technique. And so this is one of those. For you, you were talking about trying to create that whole meal on the grill. There's one called Weber's On the Grill app, and that has 300 recipes in it. You can share photos of your grilling creations on some social media sites, and you can also bookmark and save your favorite recipes from there or add your own into the app. So if you've got one that's not actually in the app right now, but you want a particular spot to save it, you can do that as well. And then there's one called Chef Steps, and that's by Chef Steps Inc. They're those kind of cooks and chefs who are into the molecular gastronomy, but they're very, very technique driven as well. So you'll see them talking about certain chemical compounds to add to liquid to turn it into little jelly spheres and stuff like that. But if you look at their app and their website, they actually have some wonderful technique videos on how to perform some very basic cooking, what they consider the right way, which is they've kind of researched it really, really well. So those are some really great apps to look into.
Awesome, and we'll include all the links to those apps in the show notes. So if you want to head over there, Ryan has done a bang up job. I can tell he's a really good podcaster because he makes really good show notes in here. So
The
he
show
knows
notes for this are
exactly
better
what
than
I
my
need.
show notes ever.
No, these are awesome, Ryan. I'm looking at this. I'm like, wow. Thank you
I know I'm
for
saying I don't do them for my own. I
yeah.
did them for you because
Yeah. No, this was awesome. It was really helpful to work through the show with those. So I appreciate those. We'll pretty
yeah.
much get copy and pasted and just kind of get right out there into the show notes. It'll be theaverageguy.tv/HGG168. And so if you want to head out there, but if you're listening to this in the recorded version, I probably have it, not probably, I do have it out there by now. So you can head out and get access to all that. Ryan, I'm going to ask you to hang around for some post-show chat. I want to talk a little bit about you've got some other items in here in the show notes that I'll tease people with that we'll talk about in the post-show, and I'll remind folks you want to come out and listen live, because I don't always put the post-show in with the live show, because sometimes we just get too long with that. And so to give you a little incentive to come out on Thursday nights, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, you want to come out because you want to hear those things. And Ryan, I assume it's okay if you hang around for a few extra minutes. Is that all right?
Definitely.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
Well,
it's almost bedtime, but
yeah, we'll hold you out. You're on the West Coast, man. It's not even. You haven't gone to work yet. So we will put that. We'll stay around for the post show. So if you're listening live, hang tight. We will at the end of some music's going to play, and I said there was a call. Somebody had called in, and I'm going to play that call in its entirety in the recorded version of this. So if you're listening to the recorded version, hang tight. I hate to do that live sometimes because it kind of just slows down the feel of the live show, but we'll put that in. So if you're listening to the recorded version, hang tight. I'm going to put that at the very end, and an opportunity for someone to respond to last week's show. So hang tight in that. Ryan, I want to say thanks for coming out and being a part of the show tonight. If I ask you again, would you come back?
I would come back, actually, Jim. Thank you so much for having me here. I really have had a blast, researching the show and telling you my thoughts on it and giving you some of the equipment that I use at home. And I want to thank everybody out and you guys out in the chat room for all the great questions. And if you guys have any more questions, just shoot them to Jim, and I'll follow up in the comment section if you guys have questions there. I'll go check it out and try and answer them over the next couple of weeks.
And you're on Twitter too, right?
I am on Twitter. You can find me at Food Craftsmen or at the Ryan K. Parker.
The Ryan K. Parker.
Well, somebody had Ryan K. Who has Ryan K. Parker? So I had it's very
you had to go with
the
Ryan. Yeah, you had to.
I should have capitalized it all.
You can catch both of us out at Ask the Podcast Coach on Saturday mornings. Ryan's out in the audience, kind of corralling that group. You've kind of become a ringleader there in that group.
I give you the ATR 2100 stock price of the day, and actually, I'm going to be on the show this Saturday. If you're listening to us live right now, I'll be on the show this Saturday talking about a theme that I just purchased.
Oh, good.
And kind of giving the back end story.
We're going to bring you in live. Is that what we're going to do?
Yeah.
Cool.
I believe so.
Rock on. So we'll get to spend some more time together doing that. So we'll have you back. We'll try and make this some kind of regular occurrence of some kind, maybe once a quarter or something like that. Come on and talk about food. I do need to get you back. The guys were asking about food, some of the things around the right diet. So maybe we'll have you back a little sooner to talk about that. And because it's important what you eat, right? I mean, what
Very
you eat
important what you eat.
Yeah. Our demographic, Ryan, is all of us, right? It's just we're middle-aged guys and we're just struggling with the midsection.
I hit 40 this year, and I swear that I can't look at anything anymore without it putting on weight. More importantly about what you eat, it's the fact that you're making it. I want everybody to be able to go cook. Everybody watches the Food Network. More people know about food. Less people are actually cooking. So let's get out there and cook too. I'd love to come back for that.
Okay.
Anytime.
Yeah, we'll book you. We'll get look at your schedule over the next couple months and figure out what works well for you, and we'll have you back in. I don't want to abuse my right to have access to you, but let's figure a good time that works for you, and we'll love to have you back on the program and talk about that. I will remind everyone listening both live and on the recorded show, I want to say thanks for supporting the link, the Tech Scholarship Fund link. And so you guys have been another stellar month for the AverageGuy.tv on Amazon. When you use the AverageGuy.tv/Amazon link, of course, we turn those dollars into products. And actually, one of those products that we purchased a while back is going to be reviewed and on the podcast here in the next couple of weeks, and so you want to watch for that. We bought a little DVR, to digital. I forget it takes your VCR tapes, right? And you plug it in, you play it, you run that right into your computer, and then you can record those back. So if you want to get stuff that's on VCR off, I mean, we're all old enough for the most part. If you're under 30, first of all, send me an email, jim@theaverageguy.tv. I want to know why you're listening, or a woman, because most of us are in our 40s or so and our 50s, and at least I think that's what our demographic is. And we've all got VCR tapes of some kind, maybe that's got old family movies on it, or something we wanted to get up, maybe The Lion King. and you want to get those. We had somebody buy that kit on Amazon. It's about $50 to do that, and that's one of those items we were going to ship around the community. Maybe you only need that one time. Once you get everything off, you don't need it anymore. And so one of the guys reviewed it. We'll talk about that here in the next couple of weeks, and then we'll probably ship that around the community to anybody that wants to use that and get it done. That's one of the things we do, Ryan, here at theaverageguy.tv. Oh, Ryan's pointing at himself. It looks like he might have to be the next guy to borrow our cable. And we're creating kind of a tech lending library, is what we said. And because there's some equipment you just only need once, you know. And so we're going to gather some things here and use those commission dollars that we make off Amazon and turn those back into reviews and stuff that we can use. So thanks for doing that. We remember, hang around for a second because we're going to play that message that I got this week. And of course, those are important to me. When you guys call in for anything, I love that because I get to interact with you. We get about 1,000 downloads a week, and I only interact with a handful of you. So it's one way for me to hear from you. 402-478-8450. You can catch us on Saturday mornings, and catch me Saturday mornings with Dave Jackson out at Ask the Podcast Coach, 9:30 Central, 10:30 Eastern, out at AskThePodcastCoach.com, and of course on the Home Server Show on Tuesday nights with Dave McCabe over on the Geeks Network. Love to have you over there as well. For that, stay around for the post show. Remember, you don't get the post show unless you come around for the live show. Ryan, thanks for hanging around. Good night, everybody.
Hey, Jim. Just finished listening to the Fit Tech episode that you had with Andrew and Mike. Just wanted to make a comment for Mike. He was saying that he was concerned about having using one scale with that's uploads to one system, using a watch that goes and uploads to a different system, and then maybe tracking his food on a separate system, and having all these different sources. Next thing you know, and his kids are doing something else, and all of a sudden he's logging into 7 different systems, to go and grab his data, but they're not all in one consolidated place. I figured I'd just, give him an option for consolidating all that, and that being, you should look into stuff like, I'm trying to remember the name of it. I don't know what they call it specifically, but like Microsoft has their Health Vault, what do you call it? And that's something that I know Fitbit is compatible with. Some of the companies are supporting these medical fiber file lockers, I guess, would be kind of what they are, and their goal is, to be able to put like your medical information in there. But, I don't know, for me, I'm not exactly keen on putting my medical information out on someone else's servers and then, maybe losing that because, my password got hacked or whatnot. But, for consolidating my running info and and consolidating my gym workout results with with the stuff that Fitbit, that tracks from all day usage and whatnot, and in the Adidas system, all that. If it's compatible with one of those systems like Microsoft's Health Vault, it all pulls it together in that one spot, and then boom, you go to that one spot and you can see all your data, together nicely instead of logging into 14 different sites and, and then writing down, oh, I did this here, and then, going to another site, or keeping the tab open, going to another site and looking at the other stuff and trying to piece it all together. So just, thought I'd give him an option. There's a name for that kind of stuff, but honestly I can't remember it. Microsoft has their thing, and there are other companies, and it's actually part of a government initiative for for digitizing their people's health data. So just poke around if if the Microsoft one isn't interested into them, but he is interested in that kind of stuff. If he pokes around, there is a government site that a U.S. government site that does have a list of all these like medical cyber lockers out there. So just thought I'd, give you an option, just with a comment. I did enjoy the show and look forward to more health tech. Have a good one.